we are tracking from across the globe. Fresh turmoil in Bangladesh. Army and new student-led political party on warpath. Military slams claims by the newly formed student-led National Citizens Party, accusing it of attempt to bring back the disbanded Awami League. Fresh turn in Ukraine peace deal negotiations. American envoy kicks off critical negotiations with Russian envoys in Riyadh as tensions simmer between Moscow and Kyiv. Assistant US Trade Representative for South and Central Asia, Brendan Lynch, to pay 5-day visit to India beginning Tuesday. Issues related to trade and tariff between the two countries will be the focus. Gloves are off in Greenland. Political leaders condemn upcoming high-profile Usha Vance-led United States delegation planned visit later this week. Term it aggressive. And love is in the air and life is better with you on my side, underlines golfing legend Tiger Woods as he confirms dating Donald Trump's former daughter-in-law, Vanessa Trump. Top focus on the broadcast this evening is Bangladesh, where tensions in the country are peaking once again. This as the military formally rejected claims by the National Citizen Party, or the NCP, a newly formed student-led political force, accusing it of attempting to bring back disbanded Awami League under military-backed plan. The army dismissed the allegations as hilarious and part of an immature political stunt. However, the controversy escalated after NCP leader Hasnat Abdullah alleged a refined Awami League was being prepared to re-enter politics under India's influence, stirring protest in Dhaka University. Thousands of NCP supporters rallied, calling for a post-revolution Bangladesh where military interference in politics would not be tolerated. The political storm is brewing just months after a violent student-led uprising led to the downfall of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's 16-year-old regime, and Bangladesh remains on the edge. While the military increased patrols in the capital, the growing rift between NCP and the army only deepens the country's political crisis, while Bangladesh sinks deeper into chaos under its interim leader, Muhammad Yunus. My colleague Shersi now joining us with more details on this story. Shersi, now, the initial demand, it all started against Awami League leader Sheikh Hasina. Now the new target is the country's military.
Well, that's right, but the military remain non-confrontational with the students, though protests have been peaking at the university in Dhaka, and Dhaka saw widespread student rallies, and the military was the target of the newly formed student party NCP. The NCP, of course, has made allegations that the army is trying to bring back the Awami League, a refined version of the Awami League of deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. However, the army chief has dismissed those allegations, calling it hilarious. And of course, we'll have to wait and see what the student-led NCP does next. However, Muhammad Yunus has said that they have no plans of banning Awami League as of now, but of course would take any kind of criminal action against them if required, against the leadership of the Awami League. But protests, of course, widespread across Dhaka, especially where the NCP has been targeting the military in Bangladesh of conspiring to bring back the Awami League.
Thank you so much, Shersi, for joining us with all those latest details coming in from Bangladesh at this moment. Let me also bring in Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. We also have Faisal Mohammed, Minister Press Bangladesh High Commission, New Delhi. Gentlemen, thank you so much to both of you for joining me at this moment. Let me start by asking you, Faisal, at this moment, this new party now blaming the army as well, Bangladesh is sinking further into chaos and turmoil. It seems that under Mohammad Yunus, the caretaker, Prime Minister, the CEO, Bangladesh, the spin continues in the downward direction.
I mean, the optic might seems like that, but that's not the case, to be honest. You have to understand that the National Citizen Party, which was formed by the student leaders who ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, it's a very new party. It hasn't passed its first month yet. And the party hasn't have any centralized structure at this moment, and they don't have a centralized agenda. But that doesn't mean that it's not a political party, because it has a very clear agenda about what sort of Bangladesh it wants to have in the near future. So what happens, like one of the important leaders, prominent leaders of this student-led uprising, Hasnat Abdullah, he made a statement in the Facebook. And, that statement wasn't essentially being endorsed by the party leadership. The party is being hemmed by Nahid Islam, and he didn't say any words about it. So what happened? After Hasnat Abdullah made that statement in the Facebook, I think NCP endorsed that because, they have to speak on the same tune. But in Bangladesh, it doesn't mean that the NCP is speaking against the Bangladesh army. Because, on August 5th, it was army who ultimately decided that, okay, they were not going to support Sheikh Hasina anymore. And because of that, her government has fallen like a house of cards. So, army, and, yesterday the army chief visited the victims of the July, some of the injured victims of the July uprising.
But Faisal, while you may be downplaying it, but the fact remains that whether it's a new party or one leader of that party, it forced the army to react serious enough for the army to come out and issue a clarification.
Clarification to whom? They issued a clarification to a news website called Netra News. And if I'm not wrong, today, the main leading newspapers, Prothom Alo, like the largest newspaper, they have published a news in where ISPR, the military spokesperson or spokesbody, they told the newspaper that they haven't issued anything to Netra News. So I don't think, army issued anything officially.
Okay. Veena Sikri, should this be just brushed off, or are we now looking at another stage or escalation of the turmoil as far as Bangladesh is concerned, where relations between the army, the people is at a very, fraught or at this moment at a very fragile situation?
Yes, I fully agree that this is a complete escalation of an already tumultuous and anarchic situation that has been prevailing in Bangladesh for a very long time. I think one has to understand this situation in the context of the rapid rise of radical Islam in Bangladesh. I think this is something that is being recognized the world over and also in Bangladesh. Just this morning, when the Chief of Army Staff was addressing all the officers of the Bangladesh Army, he specifically said that there is a rise in radical Islam in Bangladesh. Even the American visiting senator spoke to him about it, and he said we have to keep a very careful watch on it. Now, one has to see what is happening in this context. Now, the National Citizen Party, you may call it a students' party, but in my view, it is not a students' party at all. I think that the so-called spontaneous students' uprising of August last year was a complete misnomer. It was not spontaneous, nor was it a students' uprising. All these groups, all these political parties which are forming are really B teams of the Jamaat-e-Islami. It is the Jamaat-e-Islami which is controlling even the chief advisor, Mohammad Yunus.
Right.
He is not acting on his own, he is acting only through the Jamaat-e-Islami. And this Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islami Chhatra Shibir, which is the youth wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, this political party, national, it's not even a registered political party yet.
Right.
This being called the National Citizen Party is a definite outcome of that, of the radical Islam, and they are fighting against the Awami League.
Okay.
The statement made by Hasnat Abdullah was absolutely unacceptable. He's saying that we will die and we want the Awami League to be killed and whatnot. We know that all the Awami League leaders are in jail accused of murder charges. We know that leading journalists are in jail accused of murder charges. So I think one has to look at it in the context of what is happening to the democratic structure of Bangladesh.
Absolutely, and that's the worry, Faisal Mohammed, whether whether you agree with it or not, but world over, people are worried about the deteriorating democratic structure in Bangladesh. Everybody has expressed their concern, when it comes to, in fact, the rise of the radical Islam and possibly also the attacks on the minorities in the country. In that context, we also saw one of the leading exporters of garments in Bangladesh, the manufacturers, coming out and saying that the situation is dire, thousands have lost their job. The country needs much more than what is being done at this moment. Is Mr. Mohammed Yunus losing the grip?
I have to respectfully disagree with Madam, because, the thing that you mentioned, firstly, let me address that concern that you mentioned about that garments businessman. I mean, the press conference that he had and the facts that he presented was distorted. It didn't reflect the reality. And about rising Islamism and radicalism in Bangladesh, why don't you do one thing? In the past 7 days, at least 2 Indian journalists came to my office, and I have facilitated visa within like 30 minutes for them. And they're going to Bangladesh, and they're going to see what is happening there. But they will do their first-hand reporting out there. I mean, from the other side, the situation might seem like a lot troubling, but in Bangladesh, it is exactly this is not the situation out there. We understand that the optic is very bad, and the rising, the visuals out there, like Islamist people are protesting out there on the streets, and even they're flying flags where we have seen, the ISS things are being written. These are very bad optics, but I'm asking a question here. What sort of security threats those people are posing to India or other, even for the people of Bangladesh? During Hasina's time, her government has suppressed all these Islamist parties and others in such a brutal way that they feel that they didn't have any voice. And now it's all of a sudden, it's like a popped up soda cans and all these dissenting voices are getting out.
But is this also then tit for tat? Because when you are talking about democracy, even if the former, the party of the former prime minister, if they want to in fact participate in the democratic setup, political parties like the NCP can't come out and give statements that they should not be allowed or they should completely be vanquished.
No, not like that. If I want to quote Madam Veena Sikri, she said before the 2024 election that the participation of BNP isn't a necessary thing. Now all of a sudden, a party which is being ousted from the power through a popular uprising, why its participation in the next election is necessary when their leaders are not in the country? They're hiding in India, they're hiding in other places, and the Awami League doesn't have the capacity right now to field even 300 candidates for the election. So,
but that's for them to decide, not for any other political party to make statements about that.
Yeah,
but Veena Sikri, you were hearing what Faisal Muhammad was speaking about. He said maybe from where you are looking at it from the outside, the situation looks dire. It's not as complicated or as bad on the streets of Bangladesh.
Well, I must say that just making a statement on television in your program doesn't change the situation on the ground in Bangladesh. I'm talking about reports coming out of Bangladesh through their own media. The attacks on minorities are absolutely horrendous. We recognize the world over. You saw the statement that Tulsi Gabbard made in India, because it's something that the American government, President Trump, has been concerned about even from the time he was fighting the elections. I think the whole question of trying to justify, the attacks on Awami League because so-called Awami League did something or the other, we know that the 2024 elections were certified by a wide range of international observers who came there.
Yes.
And I had already said at that time, and I don't know what statement your panelist is quoting, I had said that the BNP is free to take part in the elections, and everybody was advising them to actually take part.
Okay.
Maybe they would have won if they had took part. And I think that the question of free, fair and inclusive elections is a sine qua non of a democratic structure.
Absolutely.
I'm very surprised that the panelist is not saying anything about democracy and secularism in Bangladesh. He's not said a word about the attacks on minorities,
right.
The Hindu, Buddhist, the Christians that have been going on. He's not said a word about the way in which the Awami League leaders have been put in jail on murder charges, the way the media
I will, ma'am.
gagged.
If you allow me a few minutes to talk about the matter.
I'm totally out of control. I can out of time. I beg your pardon. I can just give you 30 seconds to in fact respond to what Veena Sikri has said.
Okay,
go ahead.
But I must have a point of response also. I must have a point of response.
the attacks on minorities are exaggerated. I mean, yes, the attacks had taken place, but those are politically motivated. And I can assure you one thing, like the US government is trying heart and soul to gain the confidence of our minorities. And in the
Okay.
past few months, I can guarantee you that even the Indian media have stopped publishing news about attack on minorities because it is not happening.
No,
All
I want
right,
to say one
whether-
thing on that. Please, can I say one thing on that? I think I must say that it's not only attacks, it's also taking them away their jobs. All Hindu teachers have been
The
forced to
discrimination
resign.
is
All
the
Hindu
is
police
the
people have
worrying
been-
part. The
and I
discrimination
think-
against the
and I
minorities is
think
also, of
that
course, a
this
worrying
question
part.
of trying to
And
justify-
whether it is just about the PR optics, the fact remains the entire world is watching. The focus remains on Bangladesh, and at least at this moment, the optics coming out of the country do not look very encouraging. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me at this moment on this discussion. I'm slipping into a short break. Coming back, stay tuned.
Whether you're setting up a new nest, starting your own flock, or they just keep on growing, get more time to pay with VeryPay. You can buy now and pay up to 12 months later, and pay no interest, with nothing to pay at checkout. And you can easily keep track of payments in the Very app. More time to pay with VeryPay.
I urgently need to ask for your help on behalf of animals at risk right now. With the pandemic came a surge in pet ownership. And sadly, we're now seeing a serious rise in neglect, cruelty, and abuse. Our services are being stretched to the limit. To make matters worse, our costs are soaring too. But we refuse to let animals suffer. So please, act now to help rescue the growing number of animals who've never needed us more. Please call or text the number on screen now to give £2 a month to the RSPCA. In one of the toughest times we have ever experienced, your gift will make all the difference to animals. You could help provide more life-saving treatment, food, shelter, and the loving care that many have never known. We know there are millions of you who, like us, care deeply and won't stand by while animals are suffering. We have to reach those trapped in a life of abuse and neglect before it's too late. Because for many, the RSPCA is their only hope. But we can only come to the rescue with the support of people like you. So please, will you help us be there no matter what? Call 0800 313 4392 or text RSPCA to 78866 to start your monthly gift today. Thank you.
If your garage looks like this, you need Tougher Man. A leading supplier of shelving for your home or business. Assembly is quick, easy and boltless. Buy one bay from just $59.99, or you can get 3 bays from only $119.99, saving you nearly £60. Plus you get a 5-year Storelex steel guarantee. Order now at tougherman.co.uk.
When I woke up, they said, "Alyssa, you've got leukemia." We found out that the chemo wasn't working.
Cancer is still the biggest killer of children in the UK, but innovative new treatments could help beat cancer for more children like Alyssa.
I'm cancer-free now.
Text, call or search to give £3 a month and help build a new children's cancer centre at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So together, we can save more lives.
Adding to his string of contentious decisions, US President Donald Trump has issued a memorandum targeting lawyers and law firms he deems responsible for the filing of frivolous lawsuits against his administration. Now, the directive, which escalates his ongoing legal battles, authorizes Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security to sanction these firms, potentially revoking security clearances or terminating federal contracts. This unprecedented step is being seen by critics as an authoritarian attack on the legal profession, with accusations of hypocrisy. Trump's own lawyers have previously faced sanctions for making false legal claims, including those related to the 2020 election. Legal experts warn the move could, in fact, a chill dissent, silencing very institutions that hold the administration accountable in the court. Meanwhile, critics argue this could undermine the judicial system, replacing impartial justice with a tool for political retribution. As the fallout intensifies, many are questioning whether this marks a dangerous turn towards autocracy. With this legal opposition now facing unprecedented scrutiny, Trump's latest memorandum could reshape the balance of power in American courts. Let's discuss this further. Professor Andrew Latham, author and professor of political sciences at the Macalester College, York University, United States of America, is joining us at this moment. Iriana Tuxman, the international immigration and national security lawyer, is also with us. Thank you to both of you for joining me at this moment. Professor Latham, let me start by asking you this. I mean, all this criticism that, every single day there are steps being taken by the Trump administration, which is taking America towards the authoritarian route. This only adds to that. But the fact remains that so far the administration has been absolutely unfazed by these criticisms.
Well, it has. I mean, there are two ways of looking at what the Trump administration is up to. On the one hand, there is the drift toward authoritarianism. More than a drift, it's a deliberate push in the direction of authoritarianism. And I find that to be partly persuasive. There's another way of looking at it, though, which is that, and Chief Justice Roberts is implicated in this as well, it's really about getting back to constitutional basics and reestablishing a division of powers and doing away with a bunch of quasi-legislative, quasi-judicial, quasi-executive, basically autonomous organizations within and adjacent to the government. So it depends, where you stand on this depends on where you sit. I'm a kind of 50-50 person on this. I welcome the return to the founders' original vision of a strict separation of powers. But Trump is the clumsiest politician on the face of well, maybe not the clumsiest on the face of the earth, but one of the clumsiest in American history. And he's making this at least appear very malign. And the appearances are not deceptive. It is partly malign.
Let me bring you in on this, because the kind of criticism that we are looking at towards the legal community, from the president's office, what are the worries, that possibly can take place, or how a lot of lawyers, those who are in fact filing cases against the Trump administration, do they feel that they could be in fact targeted?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for asking this question. The incident with Paul Weiss has been an extreme example of the sort of executive pressure that can be put on a law firm that does not follow the official administrative policy. And it's very concerning. Of course, the White House and any administration is no stranger to litigation from its opponents. And right up until now, the usual back and forth between lawyers doing their job and administrations pushing back has been fairly par for the course matter. But targeting law firms over their choice of clients is a new direction in the exercise of executive power, and there is significant concern about the use of quid pro quos to deprive clients opposed to the administration's policy of their legal right to counsel. In other words, it's a political and legal strategy to conflict law firms out and make sure that they're simply not available to represent anyone that the Trump administration disagrees with. The Paul Weiss example is of an apparent quid pro quo, where the Paul Weiss head of the firm sent out an email saying that if they did not provide the money demanded by the administration, they would not survive, is concerning because that actually crosses the line into a sort of legal racket to some extent.
All right. Thank you, Rena, for speaking to us at this moment. Professor Latham, I request you to stay on with me for the next story that we are, in fact, looking at this moment on India Global. In an alarming, tensions, the rise in the tensions between the United States and Greenland. Greenland leaders have condemned a high-profile U.S. delegation's planned visit later this week, terming it a provocation. The delegation led by Usha Van's wife of Vice President J.D. Vance, and it includes top officials like National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Energy Secretary Chris Wright, is set to visit Greenland's U.S. military base and attend a national, dog sledge race. Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister has denounced the visit, stating his caretaker government would not meet with the delegation. I'm quoting them here. We could trust the Americans, but that time is over. In fact, the local press has been echoing growing discontent over what many see as United States meddling in Greenland's sovereignty. Donald Trump's repeated suggestions that the US should annex Greenland has further fueled resentment in the leaders of Greenland. Let me go across this moment back to Professor Latham, who's with us. Professor Latham, this is too many fronts at this moment that Donald Trump has opened, isn't it? Greenland, on the domestic front, he's battling a lot of fires, and on international, arena as well. Too many issues, specifically with Greenland. This is now going to escalate the tensions further if the caretaker government doesn't even meet the visiting delegation.
It will, and it's all pointless. There have been U.S. troops deployed to Greenland since the Second World War. They have shared, Greenland, of course, is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, which is part of NATO. They have shared security interests and concerned. The rational way forward would have been to deepen the relationship, not undermine the relationship between the U.S. and Greenland. Could have been done very easily. If the U.S. felt it needed a greater troop presence, not just the missile defense base, but as it has had in the past, naval bases and things like that, these could have been negotiated. That was the best way forward.
Right.
I'm a Canadian, so I'm very sensitive about some of these issues, but it's true of Canada as well. Why pick a fight with a country that can provide you with the critical minerals, the rare earth elements, and the security infrastructure through NORAD and NATO?
Absolutely.
Why pick a fight with Canada? It's beyond me.
Why pick fights with your friends? That's the bottom line. I mean, there have been friendly relations between these countries. Why suddenly turn that around? Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us at this moment with your perspective on this. With that, we are slipping into a very short break. Coming back, stay tuned.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
The India-US strategic partnership is one that's been developing now over the last several decades, and there's a great sense of optimism over here in India that it is headed in a particular direction. To tell us a little bit about that, and there are so many important global events taking place, Tulsi Gabbard with us, the Director of National Intelligence. It's wonderful to have you here in India, and thank you so much for speaking to us. In terms of the strategic relationship and the intelligence arrangements between India and the United States, to what extent is it premised on perhaps an expansionist or an expanding China and the Asia-Pacific region?
You know, the ties between our two countries, the United States and India, go very, very far back. And so what we're continuing to see is a strengthening of that partnership and recognizing that the mutual interests of both of our countries are centered around peace, prosperity, freedom, and security. So now as we see a new administration coming in with President Trump's leadership in the United States, of course, Prime Minister Modi's long-standing leadership here in India, we have two leaders of our two great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
So in a sense, it's taking forward what we already have in terms of the strategic partnership, and that's one of your primary goals, right?
It is.
And how were your meetings to that end?
It is. I've been having great meetings, and of course this began with Prime Minister Modi's visit to President Trump in Washington, D.C., very shortly after he was inaugurated back into office for a second term, where they really set the tone and set the vision for where a stronger U.S.-India partnership and friendship can lead to. And so my visit here is really predicated on the work that has already been done, and I've been having great conversations with my counterparts here in the Indian government. I just met with the Minister of Defense a few minutes ago, and looking forward to visiting with Prime Minister Modi here later today.
And you met the Prime Minister in Washington as well some time back. How did that go? I mean,
it was,
we saw the pictures.
It was great. I had the opportunity to meet him several years ago. It was good to see him again, and it was actually very perfectly timed, where it was maybe 1 or 2 hours after I was officially sworn into this position as Director of National Intelligence that he arrived in Washington, D.C. and had the opportunity to welcome him.
In yet another turning point in the ongoing Ukraine war, American envoys kicked off critical negotiations with Russian envoys in Riyadh on Monday as tensions escalate between Russia and Ukraine. These talks come after a similar session with Ukrainian officials on Sunday. Both sides have agreed for now to halt the attacks on vital energy infrastructures, but key questions remain. How will this fragile truce be enforced? And can it pave the way for lasting peace? Monday talks focus on securing safety for Black Sea shipping routes and navigating the complex web of energy and military concerns. While Ukrainian officials are pushing for comprehensive guarantees on territorial integrity and NATO membership, Russia continues to demand sweeping concessions, including a halt to foreign aid and military support to Kyiv. The road ahead remains perilous, with both nations unwilling to fully back down. Now, despite hopes for a temporary ceasefire, experts warn the negotiations could be just the beginning of long and rocky diplomatic journey. All right, let's bring in at this moment Alina, Development Research Center for Socio-Economic and Policy Innovations, Ukraine and Germany. In fact, we are also being joined by Tatiana Kushkeva, senior journalist, and Dr. Brahma Chelani, strategic affairs expert, who is with us at this moment. Thank you so much to all of you for speaking to us. Let me understand from you, Elena, at this moment, finally there is at least discussions on what would it take? What would be the key issues that Ukraine would want to be fulfilled, some promises that they would want to see settled before any kind of truce deal can be reached?
Thank you very much for your invitation. It's an honor to be here. I think that the most important question for Ukraine is, of course, security guarantees. There can be no ceasefire with the following peace without very specific security guarantees for Ukraine. As of now, Ukraine, it was made clear for Ukraine that it is not going to get any invitation to NATO. This question is off the table. So what exactly will our allies do in order to ensure that whatever agreements are reached, that Russia will follow what it has agreed to? And if any document is signed, so we need to be sure that that Russia will respect all these agreements. We know that Russia has a whole history of not respecting agreements that it has been signing. Since 2014, Ukraine and Russia were conducting 200 rounds of peace talks, and there have been agreements that were violated by Russia in 2022.
Right. Tatiana, while both the countries stick to their demand, is the hope of a short-term truce, even acceptable as far as Russia is concerned?
Well, it's a very good, term that you used, acceptable. I think that the problem is that, Russia's been saying all along for many, many months, years actually now, what it finds acceptable in this situation, yet somehow it still is not heard. We're hoping, that these consultations that are ongoing today will bring us a little bit closer to explaining our position as far as, what my counterpart has said. Let me remind the viewers that the Minsk agreements that were the essential talks between Russia and Ukraine were not violated by Russia. We can obviously stick to the favored narrative in Ukraine that it all kind of unraveled in February 2022, but that is as far from reality on the ground as it can possibly be. There was indiscriminate killing of people in the Donbass region for years that Russia was opposed to. And the problem with this security guarantee is actually a very serious problem, because back then we did agree to a specific set of conditions, which was violated basically the next day, and European nations did nothing to stop this violation of the Minsk agreements. And so today, in 2025, the question of security guarantees is probably the most important one.
Okay. Dr. Sholani, let me bring you in on this. I mean, even with this discussion, we understand that it's very difficult to bring both Russia and Ukraine on the table at this moment. The United States is the mediator, but it's not that all three are talking together. A short-term truce, is that even realistic, and can that lead to some long-term settlement between Russia and Ukraine?
First, the US is not just a mediator. The US is fully involved in the war. The war is not just between Russia and Ukraine. The US, short of putting its own soldiers in harm's way, is fully involved in the war, including in sharing intelligence, battlefield intelligence, and also it controls the targets in Russia that Ukraine strikes. So it's fully involved in this war, and the US under Trump is seeking to cut its losses by ending its involvement in the war. That's the reason why Trump is seeking at least a ceasefire in this conflict. He wants to shift America's strategic priority from Europe to the Indo-Pacific, where America's real enemy, China, is located. So as long as this war continues in Europe, the US will remain mired in European security. He wants an early end to this conflict so that the US can shift both its attention as well as its military resources to the Indo-Pacific. Now, ending the Ukraine war will require a complex and carefully negotiated resolution. But as Trump has publicly said, a ceasefire will be much easier than getting a permanent peace settlement. In fact, a ceasefire will be a step toward permanent peace. So right now, the efforts in Riyadh, the negotiations that are ongoing, the effort is to reach some understanding on a potential ceasefire.
Okay.
But a ceasefire itself poses challenges given the fact that Russia is making advances on the battlefield. So a ceasefire may not suit Russia at the moment. So there are these complex issues that need to be sorted out. And I think Trump's earlier boast before he took office that he will end the war in 24 hours, he's now realizing that this entire effort is going to be pretty challenging and pretty complex.
Well, positions change when you sit on the chair. Before sitting on that chair, a lot can be said. which may or may not be practical. But Elena, let me understand this from you, because one red line that now, in fact, Donald Trump, the United States, which was backing Ukraine fully, has also drawn is the NATO membership. Neither Russia wants that for Ukraine, nor is it as easy with the United States also, in fact, more or less backing down from the NATO membership. Could this possibly be one key aspect in these negotiations which Ukraine would possibly have to roll back on?
First of all, Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2014 when Ukrainians decided that they want to be a part of the European family, to go back to Europe, because Ukraine is a European nation. And Russia attacked Ukraine not because of NATO enlargement. Moreover, the lack of the invitation and the lack of NATO membership invites Russian aggression to the states, especially to Ukraine. And Russia was rightly recognized as a terrorist state by many European countries. So that we need to understand a very important thing. NATO has nothing to do with Russian aggression, who wants to restore Soviet Union, who wants to dominate in the region, and who is planning to attack Europe and many European countries. Already the intelligence of these European countries is saying that these countries have to be ready for the war with Russia by 2030. Russian aggression is deeply imperialistic, and it is very, very sad that Ukraine never got its invitation back in 2007. And I hope that we will be able to create the coalition of the willing and stop Russian aggression, and also protect our European allies.
Tatiana finds that amusing. Tatiana, go ahead, with your assertion on that. I also want to ask you what Dr. Chelani was in fact speaking about. The fact is that Russia is on the move right now. They are on the offensive. A short-term ceasefire is something that Russians believe that will give time for the Ukrainian armed forces to regroup and, launch a counter-offensive.
Well, definitely, you don't need to be a military expert for that. That is basically textbook. You have to just watch enough war movies, I think, to understand that any sort of breather that can happen on the ground for the Ukrainian forces would allow it to, first of all, re-equip themselves, because we've had this brief moment of uncertainty of whether, the US military aid will stop, it will not stop. So right now, of course, a ceasefire is something that would not benefit Russian forces in any way, shape, or form. But it's not even about that. It's as simple as, however the Ukrainians, however much they want to talk about them being European when they were never invited into the European Union. The European Union Association Agreement that I, as a journalist, have actually had to read. I'm not sure Yelena did, but she's, shaking her head vehemently, trying to explain something that never existed in life, in reality. It existed in the heads of the people who were in the Maidan. Unfortunately, in reality, Ukraine was supposed to become a market for European goods, which would essentially bankrupt the country. Unfortunately, however much we talk about what happened in 2014, what's been happening since 2014, and what ended in this conflict that is ongoing right now, the problem remains the same. We were talking about both sides agreeing to stopping attacks on energy infrastructure. Now, this is very simple. There is a huge atomic power station that is situated in Russia-controlled territories. Ukraine continues to attack this power station, the oldest in Europe, the largest in Europe. And it doesn't, I graduated nuclear physics, in university, but it doesn't take a nuclear physics graduate to understand the danger and the sheer lack of common sense that comes with attacking such an enterprise. And these attacks were witnessed by international experts, the IAEA experts that were there. So, these attacks continue. It's simple.
Both the sides,
Nobody can
and
guarantee.
this is exactly what we were talking about. It's it's a very difficult, complex situation where the narratives from both the sides, in fact, take over, and then whether some sort of a common ground can be met, short-term truce leading to long-term solution. But as Dr. Chelani said, what Donald Trump would have thought in 24 hours at this moment looks like a complete distant dream for the American president. Dr. Chelani, I request you to stay on with me. Ladies, thank you for joining me on this discussion. Moving on at this moment, Palestinian militant outfit Hamas has on Monday praised the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee. Why? We'll tell you after a short break. Stay tuned.
Right now, UNICEF is supporting millions of children in emergencies around the world. But winter brings harsh challenges. A monthly gift of £10 could help families endure the bitter months ahead. UNICEF provides warm children's clothes, blankets, and even helps heat classrooms. Search UNICEF Supplies online or text supplies to 84903. Your support brings hope for children caught in crisis.
Life is complicated. Hastings Direct Car Insurance is simple. You've got a lot going on. A lot. Trying to save could really grind your gears. So come on, let's get a great deal off the ground! Nice driving. Hastings Direct is simple. Great cover, great price, and a great app makes us one of the UK's top choices when comparing car insurance online. Hastings Direct. Simplicity is the best policy.
Who do I trust for business insurance?
If you need business insurance, join nearly 1 million customers who trust.
This is an important message for people living with diabetes, from people living with diabetes.
When I was experiencing the symptoms of diabetes, I didn't know what was going on.
You go on the internet and it's full of horror stories.
I didn't understand about carbs, I didn't understand about blood glucose levels.
That's why the support I get as a Diabetes UK member is so important.
You can become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. When you do, you'll receive a practical guide specific to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year. Plus, you'll help support research that could lead to better treatments for all types of diabetes.
As members, we're all working it out together.
Call 0800 144 5410 or go online to become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. Join us now, because membership can help you learn to live better with diabetes.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Evlo can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000, whether it's for home improvements, new appliances, a car, or for some of life's big moments. So even if you've had problems with credit before, Evlo looks beyond your credit score and always takes a case-by-case approach. Visit evlo.co.uk to get your conditional decision in minutes. Evlo, your future in your hands.
Palestinian militant outfit Hamas has praised the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee meeting outcomes, calling for heightened international pressure on Israel to cease its genocidal war in Gaza. This follows a critical meeting held in Cairo, attended by representatives from Arab and Islamic states alongside European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallis. The committee voiced deep concerns over the collapse of Gaza ceasefire, emphasizing the devastating toll of Israel's renewed airstrikes, which have already claimed lives of over 700 people on the Gaza Strip since last Tuesday, including countless women and children. In their statement, Hamas urged for immediate action on the promises made at the meeting, particularly the restoration of humanitarian aid to Gaza, which remains blocked by Israeli forces. They also backed the Arab Initiative for Gaza's reconstruction, calling for sustained efforts to rebuild the war-torn enclave with the Over 50,000 Palestinians killed since October 2023. The militant group is demanding international pressure to compel Israel to halt its aggression, release all hostages, and abide by previous ceasefire agreements. Dr. Chelani remains with us at this moment. This is also an ongoing conflict, Dr. Chelani, that at least at this moment, despite the negotiated ceasefire, seems to be quite perilous with the renewed strikes by Israeli side.
You're right, absolutely. Despite 50,000 Palestinians being killed in the Israeli military offensive, it's unclear whether Israel's security is being advanced by the current hostilities. The fact is that, in a way, Bibi is advancing Trump's Gaza plan by causing more devastation and displacement of Gazans. As you know, Trump wants the 2 million people who live in Gaza to be relocated to other countries, and he thinks that Gaza is uninhabitable because of the devastation caused by the war. But Israel has renewed the war and now is causing even greater devastation, making Trump's proposal look better in the eyes of some people. This is an unfortunate reality, and another unfortunate reality is that despite this meeting of Arab and Islamic states held in Cairo at Egypt's initiative, the outcome of this meeting doesn't really advance the cause of peace in Gaza. In fact, we haven't seen the kind of unity that we expected in the Muslim world over the conflict in Gaza or over the Israeli strikes on the West Bank. Today's ministerial meeting outcome in terms of its reiteration of general principles certainly is not going to be, certainly will not help the cause of the Gazans who want an end to Israeli strikes. They want a return to humanitarian aid. These are the demands of the Gazans, and I think we are in a very difficult situation today in terms of ending these hostilities, because Israel faces an existential crisis. It believes that its very existence is at stake. It believes it has the right to carry out military offensives, especially against a terrorist organization like Hamas. Yet at the same time, Israeli policymakers need to think long-term. They need to think long-term so that short-term considerations, that is seeking tactical gains at the expense of long-term security, that temptation needs to be reined in. And I think Israel is coming under international pressure because it has resumed its military offensive in Gaza.
Well, Israel has been, in fact, under considerable international pressure, but the fact remains that with the support of the United States, we have seen how Israel so easily has been able to resume these strikes. Will there be a considerable change on the ground? We will have to wait and see. Thank you so much at this moment, Dr. Chelani, for speaking to us on India Global. Moving on, Turkey has plunged into a wave of protests since the arrest of Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, sparking nationwide outrage. Since March 19th, more than 1,100 people have been detained as cities across Turkey erupted in the largest street protest the country has seen in over a decade. Now, İmamoğlu, a key political rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has been jailed on Sunday pending trial for corruption charges he strongly denies. His removal has been seen by many as politically motivated attempt to undermine opposition ahead of the elections. As demonstrations intensify, Turkey's opposition parties are calling for a boycott of pro-government media, accusing them of ignoring the protest. Opposition leader Özgür Özel has led a rally in Istanbul urging supporters to avoid TV channels and businesses that failed to cover the unrest. He said, I'm quoting him here, whoever buys their products is complicit. The mainstream media, largely supportive of Erdogan, has been accused of censoring coverage of the protests, while independent outlets continue to report extensively. Right, moving on now, Brennan Lynch, the Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for South and Central Asia, will pay a 5-day visit to India, beginning on Tuesday, to discuss issues relating to trade and tariff between the two countries. Lynch's visit comes days ahead of coming into force of the reciprocal tariffs announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. The senior U.S. trade official is expected to hold talks with Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, besides meeting a number of senior Indian officials. Let me go across to my colleague Mohammad Ghazali, who's joining us with more details on this. Important this meeting is going to be, Mohammad Ghazali, because even in the domestic audience, the government of India would want to show that they are not buckling down under the pressure from United States.
Yeah, and just days before the April 2nd deadline, when the reciprocal tariff, as you rightly pointed out, is going to kick in. But what is a major concern for Indian domestic market is that if they allow or reduce the tariff to go down, it will eventually benefit China and Chinese products getting into the Indian market, which the Indian government tries to show that it is not allowing it to happen. The US, meanwhile, is trying to show that India is an important partner, and that is why they're going ahead with all the discussion. Our own Trade and Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, was there last month, earlier this month in the United States, but the details of that meeting has been kept very secret. But a statement coming out from the different ministries hinted that India has lowered tariff with many other countries. So on the same lines, on a mutually beneficial terms, there will be a bilateral trade agreement, as well as a solution would be found about how to deal with this reciprocal tariff being imposed by the United States.
Thank you so much, Mohammad Ghazali, for joining us with all those details. That's all the time that we have in this edition of India Global. News and updates continue here. Stay tuned.
Say hello to the UK's most personalised Mother's Day card. And now get 20% off all cards this Mother's Day. Moonpig.com.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
With retirement round the corner, I want to spend more time with my family and less time worrying about the numbers. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
And that money could help with funeral costs or even as a gift for the grandkids. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
You got them all right. That's amazing.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 977 5808 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
It feels good knowing that your future's in hand. Evlo can offer you a loan from £1,000 to £15,000, whether it's for home improvements or for some of life's big moments. Evlo looks beyond your credit score and always takes a case-by-case approach. Visit evlo.co.uk to get your conditional decision in minutes.
I'll fix him, love. Poor pet. Just shows you never know what's going to happen. Which reminds me, I need to protect the life we've built. That's why I'm looking into smart family life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
OK. You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000, depending on your age. If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And it could help my husband with the mortgage.
Just like families, not all life insurance is the same. That's why we offer the Smart Family Guarantee.
That's good to know.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cash back on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you'll also get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 5753 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Welcome to the Southern View. I'm Veera Raghav. Lots lined up on the show this evening, including our special focus on the horrific realities in campus hostels in India. But first, the headlines this hour that we're tracking. Despite protests from the High Court bar, the Apex Court Collegium decides to transfer controversial Justice Yashwant Verma, from whose house a stash of burnt cash was reportedly recovered, to the Allahabad High Court. The Allahabad High Court Bar Council threatens to go on a protest. The Apex Court orders a probe into the 2023 death of students in IIT Delhi, also orders a task force to look into student suicides. D.K. Shivkumar denies saying that the constitution will be amended to provide reservation for minorities, but the damage is done as there is a fierce face-off in the Rajya Sabha over reservations on the basis of religion. First up this evening, our special focus on the case of 20-year-old Chaitanya Kumari, the nursing student in Kerala who died at the Kozhikode Government Medical College after being in coma for nearly 3 months. The girl, who had alleged miserable treatment by a warden at the hostel where she was studying and staying, had attempted suicide and was in a coma since last December. Hailing from a poor agrarian family in Kottayam district of Kerala, Chaitanya joined a nursing college in Kanagad in Kerala and allegedly attempted to take her life after she was treated badly by the warden, who allegedly denied her even food when she was unwell. Her family has alleged mental torture by the college authorities, and the warden and all other students have also complained about the difficult conditions in the hostel. The police have registered a case and are investigating the matter.
ഈ വിഷയമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് നിയമപരമായ ഒരുപാട് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങളിപ്പം അറിഞ്ഞ സ്ഥിതിക്ക് നമുക്ക് ഈ കുട്ടി ഈ വിഷയമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് ചെയ്തതിന് തെളിവ് കൃത്യമായി നമുക്ക് കൊടുക്കാൻ സാധിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. കാരണം അവിടെയുള്ള കുട്ടികളൊക്കെ കൊടുത്ത പരാതിയിൽ സംശയം മാത്രമേ ബോധിപ്പിക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. കാരണം വാർഡൻ ഈ കുട്ടിയെ ഹരാസ്